Welcome, everybody, to another episode in this series for Mastermind Leaders. My name is Sebastian Cruze. I'm a 7-year Mastermind leader and founder of the True Freedom Mastermind Group. And today I have a very special guest with us, Wendi Freeman, who has over 15 years of event planning experience. And she's impacted over 10,000 attendees through her events. So this is going to be very, very useful, very practical, because we're in the people business. We're in the business of bringing people together, and Wendi has her zone of genius there. So before I get into the structure of today, first, let's check in with Wendi. How are you doing today? And welcome aboard.
Thank you. I am fantastic. I am super, super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So starting with the problem, every great movie has a crisis, a problem in the beginning. So if you listening this have ever hosted an event where you pour all your love into this event and you're thinking of this thing, and maybe you're a little bit of an overachiever. And so you want to make everything perfect, all these different parts to create the transformational experience for the people that you love. And it's great. It goes great. You get good testimonials. But after the dust settles, you look at the bill and it's killer. It murders you. You feel your gut drop inside. I mean, I was thinking of, there's probably some swear words. There's probably like, oh my God, how to make this work. So what Wendi's going to share today is how to balance having incredible results, incredible experience, while also being a responsible business owner and fitting within a budget that makes it sustainable so that you can host more events. Because if the events are at a loss and if they don't create the transformation, the business is not sustainable.
Mhm.
So with that, setting the stage here, I'd love to pitch it over to you and hear, a bit about your story of how did you get into event planning to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm super excited to talk about the budget things because that's definitely an important thing. But my start in event planning honestly happened probably when I was actually definitely my 10th birthday party where my mom was planning it, and these are the balloons and this is the cake and this is this, and I was like, "No, you're doing it all wrong. This is not my vision. I want it this way, this way, this way." And from that point on, it just transpired into all the rest of my birthday parties, high school youth group type things, sorority things, friends' bridal showers, baby showers, divorce parties, all of that. Realized that I could actually make a career at doing what I love to do, and did that in the corporate space for over 15 years. I was with the same company for 12 years, planning all of their meetings, all of their events, and doing all of their marketing. When I started with that company, I was the fourth employee. 12 years later, when I left, we were up to 700. And
Wow.
it was amazing. I joke that it was entrepreneur light because as the fourth employee, I got to wear tons of hats and do so many things without the financial risk that goes along with being an entrepreneur. Learned a lot and, worked my way up the corporate ladder. And honestly, I attended an event, a transformational event where I basically cried for 4 days straight. And I was like, why have I done everything that society has told me to do? I, got married, I got divorced, I had a baby, I bought a house, all the things. I'm traveling, I had the six-figure paycheck, or salary. Like, this is amazing. Why am I unhappy? And in doing the work, I realized at this event that I'm planning the wrong events. These are
Mm.
amazing events that I was planning, but it was the same event, a little larger every year with a different theme, with a different location, but they left me feeling no purpose. So I was lacking that purpose, which was my like aha moment. So the very first time I ever took a microphone in my hand was at a share, at one of these events where you get up and I'm like crying and I'm like, I'm doing the wrong thing. I declare within 3 months, I'm going to quit my corporate job to start planning transformational events just like this.
Wow.
Because I believe firsthand experience in a world where one event has the power to transform someone's entire life. And
Love it.
that can be an event of 10 people, that could be an event of 1,000 people. It doesn't really matter. It's about an experience, all of the senses, the way it all comes together, the person leaning in or the organization leaning in, and it can have that impact. So basically was how, and 5 years ago, Be Bright Events was born. So,
Wow. So many things I resonate with, and I feel like others do as well. And so powerful to be in your lane, I feel like, of your skill set, yet the meaning wasn't there. I mean,
mhm.
that's so powerful. And then being able to have the recognition of like, I got to make a change. And then the courage, the boldness. I mean, within 3 months, I mean,
I
that's
did it.
you jumped off.
I ended up doing it in about a month and a half because once I
Wow.
made that decision, I was like, I have to.
Yeah.
But I was in the middle of planning our annual conference for the
Oh,
company. So
okay.
because I'd been there for 12 years and I loved them and all of that, like I gave them 3 months notice. I wasn't just,
Mm-hmm.
and I also turned around with a proposal for them to hire me to continue planning their event. So I turned my 12-year corporate employer as into my very first client,
Wow.
which
Smooth.
also took courage.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like that's a nugget of insight there. Because, yeah, it's not always that smooth. Sometimes people stay way past the point that they know they should be, and they're like dying inside. The other side, people just jump off without as smooth of a plan. So I think that's really awesome that you were able to have that strategic technique and make that transition.
Yep. And I'll plug that was all because of a mastermind. When I said I was going to quit, I was like, I need a coach, I need a mastermind. And it was that coach that said, why don't you turn them into your. So right there, I like made back my initial mastermind investment
Mm,
just from that advice that the coach gave me, which I think is just a testament to the power of coaching and masterminds.
absolutely. Oh, it's so good. Awesome. And so yeah, I'd love to hear more about your method and your approach because yeah, so that the meaning is there with all the, left brain logical stuff as well. I would imagine too, in my experience of hosting events, there's a rhythm, there's an energy of each one that I feel like is like riding a wave. Like I can plan and have an idea of, okay, this is where I think the wave's going to go. And sometimes we start the day and we're flowing and, it's like I don't surf, but I would imagine it's like that. You feel a little wobbly, but you're following it.
Oh
And
yeah.
sometimes though, it's like you get started and it's like, where's the wave? Like the wave is like way over there. You got to paddle a little bit. So yeah, I'm just super curious on your method of blending both worlds, left brain, right brain, and then also the rhythm of the group.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. That is, I mean, that is the nature of events. So I think to that, contingency plans are pivotal. Like that is you can plan everything and you also have to say, I mean, a simple example would be if we're planning outdoor lunch and it rains, what's our contingency plan? That's the easy example there. But I think what it really comes down to for me or what I feel has really contributed the most to my success is processes and procedures and
Mm,
being able to learn with every single event something changes in my process and procedure because I find a way that I can enhance it or a challenge came up that I hadn't previously thought of, we overcame that, well how can I incorporate that to ensure that we don't face that challenge again. And that's where I feel like for event hosts, it's so important having the logical, strategic side of things because most of my clients, they're visionaries.
right.
They are the thought leaders and the heart-driven leaders that create this, that have this vision, but then there has to be a process to bring that to light. And there has to be an intentional decisions that go behind that. I always use the joke, well, I say this a lot, that if my client comes to me and says, Wendi, I want to put a purple monkey in that room, where a lot of event planners are going to say, okay, great. Do you want that to be made out of this? Do you want it this? Giving them options. I
Right.
say, why do you want a purple monkey, Sebastian? What do you want that for? What's that going to do for the attendees? What's the experience is it going to give them? What are we, understanding why that is their vision and then saying, okay, I hear you. And could we accomplish that same thing with a blue elephant for half the price?
Mm,
Ah, there it is, right? So it's they have the vision, but there may be a more economical way. There may be a better way. Whether it's more economical or not, it's getting to the root of why do we want these individual components? Why is it important that this comes before this? Why is it important that this is how the attendee feels? Or they come to me and they say, I want my attendee to feel this way when they walk in the door, and I have no idea what we can do to elicit that feeling. Well, that's where all the expertise and strategy comes into play. It's like, well, we could accomplish that feeling in a series of ways. Do we want to do it this way, or this way?
Absolutely. I got to share something. So funny that you said purple monkey. So a little like odd fact about myself is that ever since I was little, I just wanted to have a little monkey on my shoulder, named Chin Chin. And all my family knows this. It's odd. So like my dad sent me like a message the other day of like a little video of a monkey. So
Mhm.
I just smiled and you said a purple monkey in the room. And yeah, so the intention behind it too, I feel like so important because then you're not squashing the dreams of the visionary, you're not squashing their vision. It's just like, okay, how do we do this without blowing up a bank account?
Exactly. Because a lot of people, back to the budgeting, if you're not intentional, when you are not intentional from the beginning, your credit card is saved on your computer. You order this, you order that, you order that. $100 here, $1,000 there. It doesn't seem huge as you're spending it. But when you go and reconcile at the end, hopefully you're not reconciling at the end. Hopefully you're being intentional with all of this. And if you don't, you sometimes drop hundreds of thousands of dollars that didn't need to be spent, or because you didn't think of it on the forefront when you were really planning and coming up with everything, now you're spending twice as much for expedited fees and late this. And so your budget can immediately just get blown so far, or I should say lack thereof budget. Your expenses can just become so overwhelming when you're just making ad hoc decisions, not thinking about how they all play together intentionally. What are the must haves? What are the nice to haves? What can I make decisions on later based on tickets, based on sponsorships, based on all of the other components that are going into the planning that you may not know at day one when you set your budget? Oh,
Oops, there we go. Uh, yeah, it's such a great point. The foresight and being able to save on the expedited expenses definitely been there. And I want to go a bit deeper too on almost like the offense side of things, like a sports term, offense versus defense.
hmm
And I know for myself, when I started hosting events with my girlfriend Roxy, I really saw the difference where I was like, okay, I was the offensive player, she was the defensive player. And just knowing that there's those two sides of ourselves, because when we're on the offense visionary, it's like we love this people, we want to put everything in. And I imagine it's something like how some parents feel, where it's like you want it, get it, and this. How about this too? And you're just giving, and it's really difficult to even know like where is that line of what's needed and what's not. And so
hmm
to have another person or just another part of our mind to start with and be like, okay, defensive mode, like what is essential, what's not. Just so like that frame alone, I feel like can help people so much. And knowing that a successful event isn't being one or the other. It's incorporating both.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. I think that's the perfect analogy. And it's again the balancing the right brain and the left brain or both sides,
Yeah.
and just pause. That is what I tell my clients so much. I'm like, pause. I hear you. I understand this is what you want, and we can do that. And let's unpack that a little bit more and make sure that I am all about experience. Like at the end of the day, I don't plan events, I create experiences. That is what lights me up. And on the flip side of that, or I should say, in tandem with that, making intentional decisions. Especially with events, there are so many balls in the air all the time. Recognizing which of those balls are glass, which of those balls are plastic, which ones can drop and be picked back up, and which ones play together with each other intentional decisions. I mean, that is what I feel like that is what sets events apart is the ones where you can just tell it was a, oh yeah, let's throw this in there, let's add this in there, and you get there and it's great, but you can feel that it was piecemealed together and not orchestrated
Mm-hmm.
as a grand holistic view of all the components playing together and how they work together and impact each other.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question on this. I'm wondering if you have like a phrase or a lens that you view things through with this. So determining what is essential and what's not, and like what can accomplish the same outcome, the same intention for less. Just wondering if you have any like a lens or a framework, or I mean like a quote, with that, because at first glance, to the visionary, the person who's pouring the love, it's like, oh, well, we're getting second best because this is the best and here's second best. And like that, I feel like is a gut response. I mean, it has been for me, even though my mind knows that that's not the case. So just curious on how do you have a frame of reference for deciding that and seeing like the truth of what's essential for what's
Mm.
the
That's a
intention.
great question. I don't have like a one-liner or a phrase that goes along with it, although now I feel like I need to come up with something. And I think it's different for every single event, right? Because what is first on this event may be fifth for this event, as far as the list. So
Right.
obviously, the not comparing yourself. I have clients come to me all the time. They're like, well, Tony Robbins does this. Yes,
Right.
he does. And he has multi-million dollar budgets that he is throwing into his events.
Right.
But how did that make you feel? So I guess that's my question. How did it make you feel when you received that from Tony Robbins?
Mm,
How can we make your people feel the same way
mm,
with your budget? In, so I think a lot of it is the just getting down to the root of the feeling and the intention, reframing to not do the comparison thing that is just so comes so naturally to everyone. And through that, I mean, when you were first speaking, the one of the things I thought as an example would be the swag bags, right? Everybody wants to give their attendees something at registration, a bag with their logo with stuff in it. It's a
yeah.
great feeling. As humans, we love receiving gifts. And a lot of times, people will put a pad of paper, a pen, a stress bag or a stress ball, some candy, some collateral that gets left in the hotel room,
Mm,
not even coming back. So, in that case, how can we make your attendees, how can we give them something of value that's not just you throwing money at a bunch of random promotional junk? We're not going trick or treating at a trade show. This is an event, an experience. So that was kind of the thought that came up is that because that's everybody wants to do that. That is common across the board. And so maybe it's just a nice bag that they can use to bring their jacket and their water bottle. Like you don't have to fill it. I have
mm,
another client who has reached out. She's doing the same thing. We had the exact conversation. She wants to have a bag for her attendees. It's wonderful. Doesn't want to fill it with a bunch of junk. So we created an opportunity where she is reaching out to product people that provide a product that correlates to her attendees. So people with, candles and oils and this and that, and offering them the opportunity to promote their brand in these
mm,
attendee bags. But now it cost her the price of the bag, and
right.
now we have all of these they're donating it in kind. We could charge She could be charging for this with her
Mm,
event, but she's doing it out of the kindness of her heart because of the intention of what she wants her attendees to receive. If
mm,
these providers don't have to pay her just to send something and they can just send product, now these attendees are getting these swag bags with full size candles and essential oils and bath salts and smudge sticks and like things that they're not going to leave in their hotel room. So
mhm.
creating the same result, minimal investment, because we got down to the intention of why she wanted to do
Wow. Okay. I have so many questions
that.
and I'm typing here to make sure I don't forget them. Mm. Yeah, for the sponsors, I just heard that in a conversation recently is, yeah, just the power of that, just as simple of that is is anybody sponsoring your event? Is there any collaborative things like that? And I love that idea because I think we're in a community, business with masterminds. So you can think of somebody to feature their product that would make sense. And boom. Because with the swag bags, you got to order in bulk, you ought to order in time, and like the bill just gets crazy. And again, if people aren't using them, it's like, oh man. So I love that pro tip there of collaborative gifts, if it makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. And it becomes a win-win for everyone with minimal money, minimal time. Selling sponsorships comes with that's a whole process in and of itself. But
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing this. I have an event for 275 women who are this, and this. I think they would love your product. Would you want to send them? We'll promote you. We'll put your sign or your logo on the sign. Then it's just it became a no-brainer.
Right. Nice. Okay. I feel like that's definitely usable, tangible. And then so another question, like really going into the mindset of the budgeting and yeah, the budgeting. Um, do you start with the budget in mind, or how does that, and then work backwards from there to get everything to fit, or how does that work?
It's a great question, and it's a chicken and egg scenario.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of times you don't know what it's going to cost. So how do you create a budget if you don't know what kind of placeholders to throw in there? When you're creating a budget for yourself, you can say, okay, it's reasonable. I'm going to spend X amount in gas, X amount in groceries.
Yeah.
But for somebody who's not in the event planning industry, how do you even know what number to put for the food and beverage? How much is my printing going to cost? What does an AV team cost? Okay, well,
Yeah.
now you're in AV. Well, do you want LED walls? Do you want projectors? I mean, it could be
Yeah.
from this side to this side. So, what I typically advise is you list out every single category that you could possibly. A lot
Nice.
of times people will come and they'll say, I'm ready to invest. I want to do this event and I have $100,000 and that is my number.
Hmm.
We can work with that. You may have to make compromises and we may have to make intentional decisions along the way. And so typically we start with the spreadsheet that has every single category you could possibly think of, like outlined. Even and the categories are there for people who aren't skilled in planning events because they don't know what category. I tell you, Sebastian, make a list of event categories, you're going to be like, okay, well, I
Food,
know I need a place, I know I
venue.
need
Yes.
food.
Yeah.
Right. But did you think about the photographer? Did you think about the signs that you need printed to show them which way to registration? Like all those little nuances that you just don't think about. So we start with all the categories. Obviously, I'm able to kind of say, on average, you're going to spend about this for a photographer. This is about what you're looking for at this. We plug numbers in, and then we
So
start
can I pause?
massaging.
Can I pause there? That's so helpful too, because I've been in that scenario where I'm with the photographer and like it feels like the right fit. And he doesn't usually do it this time, but he's referred by a friend and he's like, name a price. And I'm like, I really don't know. And he's like, well, you're hardballing me. I'm like, I honestly don't know. Like I don't even know you know, where to start. And it's back and forth. And like 20 minutes later, I'm just like, dude, through the phone, just tell me what the price is. So,
Just tell me.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And
having
that's
those like
part of the
ballpark.
challenge because you don't want to offend people by
Yeah.
lowballing them, but
Right.
you have no frame of reference to
Oh
know.
no. Right.
So, and then you just really you have to massage the numbers from there. And then
Mhm.
you start it if I'm using 100,000 because it's just an easy number for me to do math in my head. But then we're looking at it and all these categories are adding up to 150. Okay, well, where can we start cutting? What do we need to? Does your welcome reception, do we make it 2 hours later and it becomes a dessert reception rather than serving tons of food?
Hmm.
Well, you just cut your budget in a huge way right there. You're still having the reception, you're still creating the networking, you're still providing food, but it's just desserts, which
Wow.
is significantly lower than if you're serving like a full-on buffet reception. And
And I
as
can
long as
already hear the people right now. I don't eat sugar. There's non-sugar options there. There's gluten-free options there. You're good.
correct, correct. We can do fruit, we can do veggies, and you
Yeah.
just call it a networking mixer. You don't call it a reception. You just change your messaging. People then don't expect the food. They're happy that there's something there. So that's
Yeah.
little caveat there is whatever decisions you make sure that your messaging and your marketing align so that people are not making assumptions and then disappointed on site. That's another just pro planner tip is your communication has to be on
Yeah,
point, you know, exactly what it is.
right, right. So people know what to expect, and it's true.
Hmm.
Okay, so I know you have a planning spreadsheet that you're gonna, walk through here. Before we do that, I yeah, have a really, really going into the mindset of the simplicity because what I'm really curious about is I've seen, especially in this season of my life, this strategy, radical simplicity providing way better results, where it's like taking away all of this stuff. And at first glance, it's like, oh, the results are going to be less, but maybe they'll just be good enough. And it's like, no, we're actually taking this away, and the results are just going through the roof. So it's like this way of realizing that adding extra stuff not only was not better, but it was actually detrimental. It was destructive. So I'm curious, yeah, your perspective on that. On I'm sure the people I attract are like again, passion, love, mission. They're pouring everything in there. Throw some overachiever in there. Sprinkle in some perfectionism in there, and then pretty soon it's just more and more and more and more and more. But what I'm seeing in this case is like that's actually creating a worse experience, worse event. Curious on your thoughts on A, that concept, and then B, how to find that essential that actually does get the best results for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, I mean, it really comes down to, and so many areas of events, quality versus quantity.
Mm,
And at like it's a quality and quantity. It even comes down with the number of attendees you want in the room, setting
mm,
your ticket prices. I've seen events where my client did a buy one get one free, had 600 people in the room. When he made his offer, about 10% of the room, there was, yeah, 600 people, about, I don't remember the exact metric, but about 10% of them converted versus another client who charged premium pricing over $500 a ticket
yeah.
and just under 100 people in the room, and 30% of them converted because the
Mm,
quality of the people in the room with the right people who were willing to make the investment to be there. So the quality quantity, to your first point, and then how do you determine that? I think a lot of that comes down to the budgeting and projections.
mhm.
Also playing into, yes, you can set a budget, you can say this is what I want to spend, but also what are you charging for your tickets? What if you only sell, and everybody here's free from this, but what if you only sell half of the tickets that you were planning on? Well,
Yeah.
now you're in the red, right?
Whoa.
So
Yeah.
being able to say, if this plays out, then I can add this, this, and this. If this doesn't, we can do this as a second option that's still going to create what we want it to create. We can still create champagne taste on a beer budget, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can still do those things. You can do so much, like when everybody wants the lights and the moving and the lasers and the this and the all of that, and it's like
You
you
got it. You gotta have the lasers. What? No
have to
lasers?
have the lasers, right? And I'm like, you can rent an uplight that shines up on your curtain. It's not
Yeah.
moving, it's not giving people epilepsy, but it's creating an ambiance and a feeling that transforms that space into a place. And
Mm.
that's what I think it's all about, really. I don't know.
Wow.
Did that even answer the question or did I go on a different tangent?
It did. And two things come to mind. First thing is if someday you ever have a a course or a digital program that has like lists of all these options, I feel like that in itself would be so valuable because again, we don't, people are not in the space and don't have the hard fought experience. We just don't even know what the options are. It's like, okay, lasers, what are the alternatives? So seeing those lists for every category, and maybe you already have that. I mean, that would be so valuable in a paid program.
Yes, I have it. It's just all here. So
Love it.
I need to get it out of here onto paper. I always say success starts with strategy, get it out of your head and onto paper. So I need to take my own advice on that one.
Step by step. So yeah, so then the next question is projected sales, because yeah, that's what you spoke to. It's like, okay, entrepreneurs, visionaries tend to, of course, overshoot that. A little drink here. So how to have a realistic projected of sales, because typically entrepreneurs are the visionaries in the rocket fuel model rather than the integrators. The visionaries are over optimistic to a fault, but that's the reason, like the event might not even have been created in the beginning unless a person said, I think we can get this amount and make this amount of money. And that was like the driving vision. So with the integrator, which who I see is like the defensive player that says, okay, what if we only get this bare minimum? How can we still make it work? So I'm curious on, yeah, your approach for having realistic numbers with, the visionary slash integrator offense slash defense mindsets.
And I will be completely honest, when it's a first time event, it's a challenge because you have no metrics to base things on. When you have metrics of
Right.
previous events, you can look at trends, we can be intentional about it. So
Yeah.
it is challenging. And that's why I love my spreadsheet where I can just plug numbers in and say, okay, on a low end, it could be this, on a high end, it could be this.
Right. Okay.
And if you've done your budget or even a rough draft of it, you can then kind of see, oh my gosh, while I pulled the number 197 out of my head for ticket sales, I can see there's no way I'm even going to break even here. And then we're looking at the value that you're providing and the number of meals that may be included or this or that, where that's where I'm able to come in and say, this is, you are way undercharging for this service. And because they're the leader in the heart center, they want to give, which is amazing. And that's what I love about this industry. And at the same time, we're still business owners that have to be responsible and
Right.
make decisions. And again, it plays back to the 497 was the early bird ticket, less than 100 people in the room. Initially, he wanted 200. He was more than happy when that event was over. He closed over $1 million of business because it
Damn.
was the right people that were in that room. He had
Mm.
30 people sign up for his program in a room of, I think it was 96, it was either 96 or 106 people. 30 people signed up.
Wow.
And it was a $30,000 offer.
Nice.
So, part of that comes down to me and the way that I'm able to reframe my clients or help them to see a different side and different possibilities that we can still, it's potential to still reach these numbers if we tweak this or tweak that. And that's the challenging part with events, is that it's like having a baby. It's constantly evolving, it's constantly growing. There's no real manual that comes with it, right? It's experience. And the way that I handled my son at 5 years old is far different from the way that I handle him now at 12. And if I knew what I knew then, I would have done it differently. We're all doing the best we can with what we're given, but it's just about understanding there is more than one way to accomplish the same thing. And back to what I said very early in the call, is having a contingency plan. Let's
Mhm.
plan for this. And if that doesn't work out, how are we going to pivot so that we still feel really, really great and deliver the same experience so that the vision stays the same, rather than being in this moment of, I'm a month and a half out, I have to give final numbers on the beverage, on food and beverage, I have to do this, I have to do this, I haven't sold nearly the amount of tickets. But knowing on the back end, and I always say we want to be optimistic and we want to play in this positive place of
Right.
possibility. And you can play, it's a lot easier to play in that place knowing that if it falls flat, you have a
Right.
plan in place of what to do when.
Right. Right. Yeah, once upon a time there was a version of myself that would hear the like contingency plans and be like, "Oh, that's being negative." And now I just want to smack that version of myself in the face, because it's like, that's just life. That's just being a leader, being a business owner, is vision and contingency.
I call it being cautiously optimistic.
Nice. Nice. Oh, okay, man. So many things are just hitting home, and um, yeah, I want to speak to something on the projected sales, because that's so powerful, that the spreadsheet that you can share with us, and go over through a walkthrough. And I feel like it's hyping up the big reveal. But there's so many questions that are just coming to my mind as you're sharing this before you dive into that. Yeah, that feels so powerful of being able to fine tune the numbers of, here's what happens, here's what we have to work with at this ticket price with, these attendees, you know, dream goal, minimum goal, as well as the delivery experience, and then contingency plan. Like that solves so many problems, and it makes sense if you don't have something automatically calculated. I mean, I've done that myself where I'm kind of like putting in the numbers, all together, but not having it smooth. And what I wanted to share there too is I find that in my work as well, when people are packaging their method and their expertise into a mastermind group, typically it's not clear the value. So the price that they feel is, fair for that is, lower. Then we go through this process of like putting the method, what's the results they're going to get, what's the pain that they're not going to have. And then pretty soon the price goes up more, which then allows them to deliver more of the creativity that they want into it. So it's like this win-win-win of like building out the value. And that's what I see that pattern here as well, is that we're probably like we can guess at what the ticket price would be, but we're not going to know until we tweak the numbers and make sure everything's covered. And like you said, somebody was like, all right, ticket sales $297, but that was not possible like at all for the
Right.
experience they want to deliver. So then they raised it up, and now when they go to sell that price point, like they're solid in their conviction because they're like, I know what's going to be delivered, it's going to be solid. And that's what I see as so powerful for people, is that when they have the conviction of solidness of like, no, this is where it's going, people feel that and they buy in. It's not just somebody told me to raise my prices, so then I raise my prices and now I'm kind of hoping that you buy in. No, it's like, no, this is solid, this is clear, and it's a fraction of what the value the other person's going to get.
100%. I think that that's such a amazing point because and it comes across when they're selling, right? It doesn't feel like they're being sold to. It feels like they truly believe you're going to get this value and this is what it is.
Right.
So yeah, what that's 100%.
Okay. Nice. So spreadsheet time. Should we
Sure.
dive
Let's do it. So back kind of I'm what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share the blank version of it, and then I'm gonna show you I took a previous client, erased the, took out the changed the details to protect everyone, and kind of show you what that looks like. So I call this my projection and finance wizard. And honestly, this is something that I was using for my clients just when I was managing their budgets. And then I was like, this is too good to not share with people because people just don't know. So, okay, how to use it. Great. We're just gonna show you how to use it. So basically, here's all very high level categories of what you could expect with an event. Your planner, your food and beverage, your venue, your audiovisual, photography, videography, printing, the gifts, paying for your speakers if they're coming in and you're paying for their travel, paying for your staff. Are you flying your staff out? That's something people obviously or very commonly forget about, is all of the airfare, all of the hotel. Are you running Facebook ads? And a lot of times people are like, yeah, but I'm already doing that over here in my business,
Hmm.
which is great. But would you be putting this ad spend into it if you weren't running an event? No, this is an event expense. Add it into the event. Rentals, decor, I mean, just everything. And then having a buffer, 100%, you have to have a buffer. You're
Hmm.
shipping things to the hotel has receiving fees for all the things you're shipping. You probably didn't think about that when you were creating your budget. So you have that buffer in there to accommodate for those unforeseen expenses that you just didn't think about. And then obviously with different, I just put some more in here so people can add in their own categories. So what I typically, instruct people to do is go through this and start plugging in numbers that feel good for you. Um, you know, Make sure when you're doing your food and beverage, if you have a $50,000 minimum, there's a 24% service charge, there's a 9% tax, so that 50,000 is now 87,000 or whatever. I don't know this exact number of what I'm sharing on my screen, but is that, so thinking about those types of things, and then you just come in and you literally just, all right, I'm not going to hire a planner, bad idea. You take that out. Audio visual, all right, I'm just going to go bare minimum. I'm only going to spend 15,000. I'm going to make that work. And you just start playing with the numbers to get it. We're not going to have any entertainment. We will just plug an iPod in and play some music. This is our first event. We're not going to go with any rentals. We're not going to have any decor. We're just going to use whatever the hotel provides, or we're at a beautiful Airbnb. We don't need it.
Right.
This is my first one. I'm going to do organic. I'm not paying speakers to play on my stage. Videography, maybe we'll cut that. And you really just start massaging the numbers to get it
Mm-hmm.
to a more reasonable number of where you want it to be. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the first step. Knowing that if as long as you're paying attention to the bottom number, because if you come up here and you're able to get a $45,000 food and beverage, that now changes it to, let's just say, 60. Okay, well now I can spend 20,000 more on my AV and I'm still at that number where I want it to be. So understanding that these things are going to move as you get further in your planning. And then that's where this top part comes up, is then you start. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they contract for something, but they haven't had to pay it yet. So in their mind, that money's still there and they
Oh,
bill
yikes.
for it.
Oh,
So,
yikes.
food and beverage, even though you're not going to pay that until the 2 weeks leading up to the event or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
you already contracted that you're going to spend, let's just say $55,000. Well, automatically down here, you now see $55,000 has been allocated. There's $5,000 left available. So you can all, as long as you're tracking these things along the way, like I'm just gonna, we'll just put in 5,000 there. We'll put in staff speaker travel, 10,000 there. And I'm literally just arbitrarily pulling numbers out here.
Yeah.
Um, Math is not my strong suit, which is why I built this spreadsheet so that I don't have to worry about the math. You want a videographer, you're gonna, let's just say 7,500 there. Well, that's 75,000. So here I can see, okay, wow, I did not budget enough for staff and speaker travel. I'm $2,500 over, but I'm in the green on food and beverage, and overall I'm still, I'm still spending less than I initially projected. Okay, that feels good.
Yeah.
I even go as far when I'm doing this for my clients is I'll start putting in, if I know that they're doing, 6 retractable banners with testimonials, I always just put them things, I use the notes and obviously details and is it
Mhm.
contracted? Has it been paid? But I'll put things in italics and I'm estimating in my mind that we're going to spend 7,500 just based on my experience in
Mhm.
printing and signage. Once I place the order, it will get line itemed out on this spreadsheet, but at least that 7,500 is kind of allocated. It's like the estimated budget is just your estimated budget, right? That's just your guide, but it's when
Mhm.
you start spending or where you're going to start spending that when you have something. So I'll click over here. This is like an example client's event where you can really see how it all comes into play. Once it's all filled out, like all this staff and speaker travel, you know, it was $4,000. Well, down here I can see for our staff and speaker travel, great. We thought it was going to be way more, but there were local speakers or people. What? Great. We are totally over budgeted, which is great. I love when that happens. But you're
Mhm.
able to see, and as we were going through this process, we were then able to make decisions of, you know what, let's add that flashlight that you really really liked because you wanted to use this for one moment. Let's add that into the swag bag. We have the money to do it now. Whereas
Mhm.
before it was, we know they're going to get a pen, they know they're going to get a journal, we know they're going to get a bag. This is a nice to have. And as long as we can make that decision 6 weeks out, then we can add that in later
Mhm.
type of a type of a thing. So, even here where we had budgeted roughly $240,000 at the end of the day, we only spent 200. But that's because we had this spreadsheet that was able to massage the numbers and look, and every purchase that we made is this in budget? Is there a better way? Is this a now decision? Is this a later decision?
Mhm. Wow, this is so good. This is wow. Yeah, because there's so many details that are easy to lose in the shuffle of things, especially as a person's, selling and leading and creating, the content or the curriculum or the guide and being there physically. There's a little thing here, a little thing there can get lost. And that's what I'm seeing there is like it's all in that central hub.
Exactly. And then you take it a step further and you come over to your projections tab. And this is where you can really start. Okay, I know that I want 150 people in the room. That is my goal. I'm going to sell early bird tickets, general admission at 500, VIP at 1,000. And as we get closer to the event and I start releasing more information and more details, the price is going to go up. You see that a lot. You get your early adopters, the people that are like, I'm going to be in that room regardless. I am there. I don't need to see your agenda. I don't need to know who's headlining. I believe in you and I'm going to be there.
Mm.
They get the early bird pricing. But you can come in here and you can really start playing with these numbers and say, okay, what if I don't sell any early bird tickets? Or no, let's do that the other way. What if I sell, way more early bird tickets that I thought, which are at a lower price point? Well, now I got to come back down. I got to get us down, back to 150. So we change that to 20, we change that to 10. Maybe we're almost sold out at this point. That becomes 15. That has to become 20. So you can kind of see how you can play around with the numbers to see and what. So like if we were using this as an example, I can see, okay, great. If I sell every single ticket at these prices that I'm thinking about,
Mhm.
and I have some speakers pay me, and I sell some sponsorships, and I have some table sponsors, well, okay, that's going to be okay. I'm going to actually I'm going to walk into the event before I even make my offer being whole or in the black. So
Right.
you kind of use them side by side, and neither one is really finished until it's a chicken and an egg again. Because then if I came over here and I saw that this 177 projected revenue, let's just say that we were looking at it and these tickets were less expensive, right?
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
we go. So, now I'm like, okay, this is say that these numbers were just way less than they needed to be. Well, now I can see that's also not, I should have had these numbers in my head of what I was going to change things to versus just doing it on the fly. But go back
No
to what.
worries. And I think this would be a good
So let's
chance
just say
to
we,
share
we
something
don't do
as well.
speakers, we don't do sponsors, we don't do, now your revenue is significantly dropped, right? You don't sell any of those, you don't sell any of those. Okay, well now we have a problem and we have to go back and look and say, okay, well, we're only going to make 87,000 in tickets. I'm already in the red before I even step foot in the door. What do we need to change over here?
Right. Okay, so good. So two things that come to mind, and yeah, so this spreadsheet is a paid product that people can get for themselves. And so all the numbers are already in there. And I'm sure it's easy. I'm sure this spreadsheet alone has easily saved people tens of thousands of dollars for those bigger events, help them make tens of thousands of dollars, smaller events, I mean, thousands for sure. Not to mention the hours as well. And
Mhm.
so the pricing on this is 88 bucks,
I
which
know.
is like a steal.
It goes back to the just wanting to give value and not recognizing what it is.
Right. And you have a special coupon code for um, the community members here. So the coupon code is True Freedom, True
Yep.
Freedom. I'll have this below the video. So, I mean, God, if this could even help you save one more hour, boom, on one event, boom, not to mention, or one sponsorship or one extra ticket. I mean, holy smokes. So, yeah, so anybody who's a fast action taker, just wants to like, how can I get this? And want to start putting their numbers. That's how they can. And then can you go ahead and share again on the screen the total that you had? Because I really want to hear more about, yeah, what you said here, which is in this case, the person knows that they are covered for their expenses. So they
Mhm.
go into the offer knowing that they're covered.
Yeah.
And I'm curious on your experience, like That must be so powerful in itself because they're communicating and offering the vision from a place of peace rather than like, holy smokes, this event is upside down and we got to throw a Hail Mary. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do like that. Can people sell in that way? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. It's definitely stress and anxiety. So it's a different pitch than coming from a balanced place. So I'm curious on that because I can see that being a tale of two worlds, like a person has one path they go on where it's stress and anxiety and pressure, and another one's peace and expansion. Curious to hear more on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it becomes the difference of making an invitation versus selling when you're
Oh,
on the stage.
yeah.
I always advise my clients the goal for some people, everybody's going to have a different goal based on their event. As a general rule of thumb, you want your event expenses covered with your ticket revenue and your sponsors before you walk in the door.
Right.
I do not like to count on the things that you're selling at the event
Hmm.
because there's a cost to then delivering those things.
Right. Nobody talks about that.
Nobody thinks about that. But you're delivering a
Oh,
year-long mastermind.
right.
That's your time. I mean, all of the
Yeah.
things that go
Okay.
into producing that. That's its own budget in and of itself.
Right.
So if you're looking at your event numbers if you're looking at your enrollments to offset your event budget, great. You met your event budget, but now you're way below budget over here and you're in the red, you know?
Wow.
And there's a lot of clients also that recognize the value they want to deliver and they're like, "You know what? I don't need to breaking even would be great. It's more
Yeah.
important for me to get my message out, to impact lives, to do this and that. And if that costs me 25,000 just to do that,
Mhm.
but I'm getting all this, there's so many untangibles that you get from you hired a photographer, that was a flat cost, but now you have photos that you can use in your marketing. You have a videographer, that was a fixed cost, but that so it offsets in other areas, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this so awesome to hear these. And yeah, what you shared of make sure the ticket sales and the sponsorships cover your expenses, unless you have a different strategy move, but probably as a good rule of thumb. Yeah, it's so great. And not forgetting that when you sell programs, because in the sales world, like I remember, I came up in business as like the regular business route, not coaching or consulting or anything. And I remember seeing the numbers that people would say, "Oh, we made this much in sales," and I'm like, "Well, everybody's talking about revenue, but like, what's the profit? What's the delivery? What's the margin? Like that's business." I felt like
Right.
so. Yeah, not confusing those two. So powerful. And question I have for you on this, I mean, I have so many questions, but uh, for somebody who's maybe starting a smaller event, do you have like a little, insight for someone who's like, okay, maybe they don't have the 25 or the 100K budget. Maybe they have a few $1,000s, depending on what it is, how to maximize what they can get out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, it's a quality over quantity. Just because you throw hundreds of thousands of dollars at it doesn't mean it's going to be successful. It doesn't
Right.
mean that money was spent in the right way. So I would say to the person doing it on their own, check out my website. There's a ton of free resources, first of all, that you can download to help you in to understand a little bit more, to figure out what you don't know. And that is where I see the number one, the biggest mistake in event planning is you don't know what you don't know. You
Right.
don't
Yeah.
know all of those things. So I one encourage you to check out the free resources, check out my blog because there's just a ton of information there.
Mhm.
Um, we do, and I'm shameless plug. Oh,
And that's bebrighteventsco.com, right?
both will work, but yes.
Okay.
If you forget the co, it still works, but yes.
Bebrightevents.com. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Um, and there's also just very similar to this budget spreadsheet, I have other templates, documents, things so that you're not starting from scratch. So, and I'm not saying this as a shameless plug. I'm saying this for like I created these for the do it yourself
Mhm.
host because what I have found is that if you lose your bleep on the I don't think I've ever censored myself. If
Fire
you lose
away.
it on the first round, you're never going to do it again. And people need to hear your message. They need to hear. So if you start with a
Right.
spreadsheet or a list or an email template or whatever like, one, it's going to save you time.
Mhm.
Two, so much of that combined with ChatGPT, you can make it your own. Like what I've put together in a lot of like my templates and things like that are very just generic of what's the problem, who are you speaking to, what are their challenges, how do you over, but then you plug that in with ChatGPT and you have this magnetic messaging for
Mm.
your event. Um, and circling back to what I believe the actual question was, out of your head onto paper, write it down, and
Mm.
give yourself a loose plan and give yourself time, because what takes me 2 hours with all of my experience could take you four.
Mm.
Plug it into your calendar. This is my event time. Make it part of your, what I see happen a lot is there's not a budget to hire somebody to do it, which is totally fine. You are capable of doing it on your own, but it's not part of your everyday. And so your business deliverables that you have to do take precedent.
Right.
Everything else event falls to the bottom. You're then exhausted when you're doing it. If you're doing it, you feel like you're on this compressed timeline. It's stress, you're stressed out, you're making mistakes, and versus just block out an hour a day, even if it's just at the beginning, to dedicate and commit to yourself, to your event, that's what you're going to do, and you'll that right there, I know that's just a time management entrepreneur 101 fact, but people don't do it.
Right. Right. And something that I feel like too, in my experience, like we're in the mastermind space. So never losing sight of, I feel like 80% or more of the power of the results is who is there. And if the right people are there, sometimes in the past I've joked around like, if the right people are there, as long as there's a few walls around us, it's going to be a great experience, or even none. It's just literally just, it could be sitting at a table, some random place. And yes, it's nice to have environments of stuff, of course, but not never losing sight that who I believe is, the biggest leverage point. And then from that place of like, okay, how can we facilitate the conversations there in the best way? Some snacks or whatever. And like, so if a person really has that, budget or whatever, like keeping the heartbeat of who's there and how are the connections working, and
Exactly.
everything else
Because
like,
that's, I mean, think about the conversations that you have when you go to events and you're just sitting getting your coffee, or if you're a woman, you're standing in line for the bathroom. That's sometimes where the most powerful conversations happen. So
right.
even just thinking creatively, you want to host a mastermind, you want to host a retreat, you want to host a smaller event, you have budgetary restraints. How can we get creative? Does the public library have a meeting space that they're going to let me use where I don't have to pay a food and beverage minimum?
Hmm.
I mean, those are like little things,
Right.
but I feel like so many, when you think events and masterminds, you think hotel, big stage, AV, video, like you think this grand, robust thing, but pare it back. What's the intention? What value are you delivering? And could you do that in a parking lot if you had to?
Right.
Weather permitting, probably you could.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So as we're closing up here, we've covered so many good bases here. And I want to share, before we get into the summary here, is that people can go deeper with your work in a few different ways. So number one, if they want the event finance wizard, the spreadsheet. Um, they can get that there in the link below, and then there's a half off coupon, so it's like 44 bucks. So still there. And if they want to do one-on-one sessions with you, where maybe they've got a lot built out already and they want that strategic guidance to perhaps cut the budget or deliver an experience or a venue negotiation, I would imagine, plus other things. So that's bebrightevents.com/strategic brilliance. And that link will be below as well. And then if they want deeper support where you have scheduled weekly calls from beginning to probably launch, and that is your event accelerator. So bebrightevents.com/event accelerator.
Yep. Yep. Those are
Did I hit
all,
everything correct there?
I mean, and those are more, I would say the event brilliance and the event accelerator is really for to provide support for the do-it-yourself planner.
For the do-it-yourself.
Obviously, we have our full service packages where we do all of the work. This
Right.
is you doing the work, but us kind of telling you what you need to do and looking at this and looking at that and crafting it to be how do we provide the most support for you? Or maybe you have a team that maybe, with some of my corporate clients, it's the office manager that's running this that has been tasked with it, but the marketing person is like, we're gonna give her, she has the time to do it, but she doesn't know what to do.
Hmm.
So in that case, you may have resources in your business that can do the actual physical work, but they need a little bit of guidance or whatever it may be. So those
Right.
are
Yeah, I love that. So if you want to do it yourself and have the support that saves you time and money, you have those options. If you want the full do it yourself, you're booked pretty solid. I know that. So definitely do that in advance. And yeah, so going into the summary here. So we've covered a lot of ground. I have some notes here as well. So, you shared with us how you got into events and how it was always a natural inclination, a passion, from your 10th birthday party of like, you know what? I think we need some of this, need some of this. You had a little microphone at the time telling mom what to do. No, I made that up. But from there, it was always a passion, a calling, and then how it didn't, the career wasn't connected to, your calling really at first, like the meaning. And so merging those, jumping from corporate, doing your own deal, and purpose, passion, and profit all flown together. And really sharing with us how to start with the intention of how do you want to make them feel, who's in the right room, and then working backwards from that and using the spreadsheet to really find what is the perfect, not the perfect, but because I don't feel like anything's really perfect, but like what's the sweet spot of ticket prices, delivery, um, sponsorships as well, and really making sure that the expenses are covered with the ticket prices and sponsorships. So you can make an invitation for your offer rather than a hard pitch, y'all got to buy type thing. And um, yeah, and then some tips on how to, if it's a lower, budgeted event, how to still make it amazing, memorable, and special. So covered a lot of amazing places here today. Is there any, final message or thought that you'd like to share as we wrap up for today?
um first of all, that everything that we covered, it's funny hearing you consolidate that into like, a 30-second. You did a great job capturing that. I think my parting words will be that you have a mission. You are this group has a mission. They're all heart-centered leaders. Where there is a will, there is a way. So don't let the, I want to encourage you to take that step forward to host that event, even if it starts as a 4-hour Zoom room meeting that doesn't cost you anything really but time. Momentum. Start putting the wheels in process and things will start to unfold. Maybe you don't start with a big event for 100 people. You just do, like I said, 4 hours. Like for me, it's that one event changed my life. And so I want there to be so many events out there that are just impacting people's lives and changing them, that I don't want that voice in your head shutting
Mm.
people down from taking action.
Right. Just get started. Just get the people together, start changing lives. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing this message. And my name is Sebastian, and this has been event planning for your mastermind group with Wendi Freeman of Be Bright Events. And that is the interview. Thank you, Wendi.
Awesome. Thank you so much.